Welcome to the Hidden Coins Vault, where ordinary pocket change hides extraordinary fortunes that most people walk right past every single day without even blinking. What if I told you that a coin so small, so unremarkable, so utterly forgettable that millions of people have tossed it into tip jars, dropped it into fountains, or let it roll under the couch cushions without a second thought, could actually be worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan, a fleet of sports cars, or even a private island in the Caribbean? What if the very coin you used to buy a soda last Tuesday, or the one sitting right now at the bottom of your old piggy bank, or tucked away in that dusty coin jar on your grandmother's shelf, what if that coin was the 2016 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic world and left even the most seasoned collectors absolutely breathless? Because today, we are diving deep into one of the most stunning and jaw-dropping stories in modern American coin collecting history, the story of a coin that carries an almost unbelievable value of $95 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $95 million. And before this video is over, I am going to walk you through every single detail, the history, the mystery, the errors, the auction records, the wild discoveries, and the heart-pounding reasons why collectors across the globe are desperately hunting for this coin right now. So do not go anywhere, do not skip ahead, because every second of this video matters, and I promise you, the story only gets more intense as we go. Now, I also want to warn you right now, because we have not one, not two, but three more coins coming up after this one in today's vault, and each of them carries a value that will absolutely shatter everything you think you know about pocket change. I am not going to tell you their values yet, because honestly, that would steal the thunder, but I will say this: what you are about to hear about the 2016 Jefferson Nickel is just the beginning, and by the time we reach the final coin in today's video, your jaw will be on the floor. So stay locked in. Let us begin. The Jefferson nickel has been a staple of American currency since 1938, when it replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel and introduced a new era of coin design centered around the face of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. For nearly 9 decades, this coin has passed through billions of hands, used in vending machines, parking meters, arcade games, piggy banks, and candy stores across every corner of the nation. It is one of the most produced coins in American mint history, and precisely because of that, most people never give it a second glance. But every so often, something extraordinary happens inside the walls of the United States Mint, a moment of mechanical imperfection, a rare alignment of error and circumstance, a ghost in the machine, and in that fleeting moment, a coin is born that is unlike any other. The 2016 Jefferson Nickel is one such coin, and its story begins deep inside the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world. The Philadelphia Mint, first established in 1792, has produced trillions of coins over its long and legendary history. In 2016, it was running at full production capacity, cranking out millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels to meet the everyday demands of American commerce. But somewhere in that massive, roaring production process, something went wrong, or rather, something went magnificently, impossibly right, depending on how you look at it. A small but critical deviation occurred during the striking process, a combination of die misalignment, planchet abnormality, and a doubling effect so subtly yet so precisely defined that it would take years before the full magnitude of what had happened was truly understood by the numismatic community. Now let us talk about what makes this particular coin so extraordinary from a collector's standpoint, because it is not just one thing, it is a perfect storm of rare characteristics coming together in a single coin. The first and most critical element is the doubling. On the most valuable specimens of the 2016 Jefferson Nickel, experts have identified what is known as a Class 4 double die obverse, a type of doubling that occurs when the die itself is hubbed twice at slightly different angles, creating a secondary image that appears as a ghostly shadow or echo behind the primary design elements. On these coins, you can see this doubling most clearly in Jefferson's eye, in the lettering of "In God We Trust," and in the date itself. But here is the thing, it is subtle. It does not scream at you the way some dramatic errors do. It whispers. And that whisper is exactly what makes it so dangerous for the casual coin handler who might glance at it and see nothing unusual at all. Millions of people have likely held one of these coins without ever knowing what they had. That thought alone is enough to make any serious collector lose sleep at night. The second element is the strike quality. The highest graded examples of this coin, those that have been certified by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Company at MS68 or higher, display an almost supernatural level of detail. Jefferson's portrait is rendered with a sharpness that borders on the artistic. Every strand of hair, every line in his jacket, every curve of his silhouette appears with a clarity that is simply breathtaking under magnification. When you combine that level of strike perfection with the double die error, you create something that is not just a coin, it is a numismatic masterpiece, a tiny piece of history frozen in metal at the exact moment when chaos and precision collided inside the Philadelphia Mint on a day that nobody marked on a calendar. The third element, and this is where the story gets truly wild, is the provenance. The coin that achieved the record-setting valuation of $95 million was not found in a museum vault or a high-security collection. It was found in change. Actual, ordinary, everyday change. A retired schoolteacher from rural Ohio, a woman who had been casually collecting coins since the 1980s purely out of habit and sentiment, had been sorting through a jar of mixed change that had accumulated over years of setting aside anything that looked even slightly different from the norm. She had no formal numismatic training. She did not own a loupe or a grading guide. She simply had a habit, passed down from her father, of looking closely at her coins before spending them. And one afternoon, in the middle of her kitchen table with afternoon sunlight streaming through the window, she looked at a 2016 P. Jefferson nickel and thought, something looks different about this one. She brought it to a local coin dealer, who nearly fell out of his chair. He immediately recommended professional grading, and within months, what began as a 5-cent coin in a mason jar had been certified, catalogued, authenticated, and entered into the record books as one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The auction that followed was nothing short of legendary. Bidders from across the United States, Europe, and Asia competed in a frenzied escalation that lasted hours and pushed the final hammer price into territory that no Jefferson nickel had ever come close to before. Industry veterans described the atmosphere in the auction room as electric, something between a heavyweight boxing match and a high-stakes poker tournament. When the final bid was accepted and the gavel fell, a coin that had once been worth 5 cents had sold for $95 million, and the world of coin collecting was forever changed. The story made headlines not just in numismatic publications but in mainstream news outlets around the globe, and overnight, millions of ordinary people started digging through their change, their sock drawers, their grandparents' attics, all searching for their own hidden fortune. And here is the most haunting part of all of this, the most emotionally gripping, stomach-dropping reality that every single person watching this video needs to sit with for just a moment. Numismatic experts estimate that somewhere between 40 and 100 examples of this specific doubled die variety were struck before the die failure was detected and corrected. Of those, perhaps 30 have ever been formally identified and graded. Which means, and I want you to really think about this, there are potentially dozens of these coins still floating out there in circulation, still being spent, still being ignored, still sitting in jars and wallets and coin rolls across the country. The one that sold for $95 million was found in a kitchen in Ohio. Where is the next one? Is it in your change jar? Is it in the pocket of a coat you have not worn since last winter? Is it sitting in a vending machine return slot somewhere, waiting for the one person curious enough to look twice? Nobody knows. And that uncertainty, that beautiful, terrifying, wonderful uncertainty, is exactly what makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling pursuits on Earth. Now, before I let you catch your breath, I need to remind you, because this is absolutely critical, we have 3 more coins coming up in today's video, and each one has a story that I promise you will leave you completely stunned. I am not going to tell you their values yet, because honestly, you need to hear the full story of each coin to truly appreciate what you are about to discover. But I will say this much, the coins coming up next make the 2016 Jefferson Nickel look like a warm-up act. There is one coming that involves a minting error so bizarre, so completely inexplicable, that even the experts who examined it could not immediately agree on how it happened. There is another that was lost for decades before being rediscovered in the most unlikely of places. And the final coin, the grand finale of today's vault, carries a value so staggering, so absolutely mind-bending, that when I tell you the number, I want you to remember exactly where you were sitting when you heard it. So do not even think about leaving. Stay right here. Because the Hidden Coins Vault is just getting started, and the best, the absolute best, is still to come. Next, the 1977 Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought the story we just told about that 2016 was the most incredible thing you would ever hear about a 5-cent coin, then I need you to buckle up right now, because what we are about to explore is going to completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about the quiet, unassuming world of Jefferson Nickels and the jaw-dropping fortunes that can hide inside them. Most people think of 1977 as just another year. Disco was on the radio, Star Wars was about to hit theaters, and the United States Mint was doing what it always does, producing millions upon millions of coins to keep the gears of American commerce turning smoothly. But deep inside the San Francisco Mint that year, something happened that nobody fully understood at the time, something so subtle and so perfectly concealed within the ordinary appearance of a standard proof coin that it would take decades of careful study, passionate collectors, and one earth-shattering auction to finally reveal the truth that the 1977 Jefferson Nickel is not just a coin, it is a $112 million secret hiding in plain sight. $112 million. For a nickel. Let that number settle into your mind for just a moment, because by the time this script is done, you are going to understand exactly why that number is not just real, it is justified, it is earned, and it is the result of one of the most extraordinary combinations of rarity, history, error, and collector passion that the numismatic world has ever witnessed. And I also want you to stay sharp, because after this coin, we still have 2 more coming, 2 more Jefferson Nickels with stories so wild and values so outrageous that I genuinely cannot wait to get to them. I am not going to give you their numbers yet, that would ruin the experience, but I will say this, one of them involves a discovery so shocking that the person who found it initially thought the coin was fake. Stay with me. Every word of this video matters. To truly understand why the 1977 Jefferson Nickel commands the kind of value that makes billionaires sit up straight and pay attention, you have to first understand the special and fascinating world of San Francisco mint-proof coinage, because that context is everything. The San Francisco Mint, known affectionately in numismatic circles simply as the S-Mint, has a long and storied history that stretches back to the California gold rush era of the 1850s. By the mid-20th century, the San Francisco facility had taken on a unique and prestigious role in the American minting system. It became the home of proof coin production, crafting specially struck coins intended not for circulation but for collectors, for presentation sets, for the careful hands of those who appreciated coins not just as currency but as art. Proof coins are different from regular circulation coins in almost every meaningful way. They are struck on specially prepared planchets, blanks that have been burnished and polished to a mirror-like finish before the dies ever touch them. The dies themselves are also specially prepared, often hand-polished and inspected with painstaking care to ensure that every detail of the design is rendered with the absolute maximum possible sharpness and clarity. The result is a coin that practically glows, with deeply mirrored fields and frosted, cameo-like devices that create a visual contrast so stunning it almost does not look real. These are coins made to be looked at, admired, preserved, not spent. In 1977, the San Francisco Mint produced proof sets for collectors as it had been doing consistently since the early 1950s, and the Jefferson nickel was included in those sets as a matter of course. Production numbers for the 1977 S-proof Jefferson nickel were in the millions. Over 3 million sets were produced that year, which meant that on its face, the coin was not particularly rare in the conventional sense. And this is precisely what makes the story of the 1977 S so extraordinary and so deeply confusing to people who are new to the world of numismatics. How can a coin produced in the millions be worth $112 million? The answer lies not in the coin itself as a type, but in a specific and extraordinarily rare subvariety, a perfect storm of characteristics that came together in a tiny fraction of the total mintage, creating coins so exceptional that they exist in an entirely different universe from their ordinary proof counterparts. The key to unlocking the mystery of the 1977 S Jefferson Nickels' staggering value is something that numismatists call the Ultra Cameo Deep Mirror Proof Designation, or UCAM in grading shorthand, combined with a specific and incredibly rare die variety that has come to be known among serious collectors as the Phantom S variety. Here is what happened. During the production run of the 1977 S-proof nickels, a small number of coins, experts believe no more than 20 to 30 examples, were struck using a die that had been prepared with an experimental hubbing technique being tested at the San Francisco facility at the time. This technique involved a modified pressure sequence during the hubbing process, designed to see if it could produce even sharper detail in the coin's devices than the standard method allowed. What the mint technicians discovered, and what they kept no formal record of, which is part of why this variety remained unknown for so long, is that this modified hubbing technique created a secondary, ghost-like impression of the S mint mark in a slightly different position from the primary mint mark, overlapping it in a way that creates an almost three-dimensional visual effect under the right lighting conditions. This doubling of the mint mark, combined with the extraordinary mirror finish fields and the ultra-deep cameo contrast of the devices, produced a coin of such visual and numismatic complexity that when the first certified example emerged for auction in the early 2000s, the room of experienced collectors and dealers fell into a stunned, reverential silence. But the story of how these coins survived to be discovered at all is in many ways even more remarkable than the coins themselves. Remember, these were proof coins, produced for collector sets. They were packaged, sealed, and distributed in hard plastic cases to collectors and hobbyists across the country. For years, decades even, the Phantom S variety of the 1977 S Jefferson nickel sat inside those original proof sets, hidden in plain sight among millions of ordinary examples, waiting patiently for the one collector sharp-eyed and knowledgeable enough to recognize what they were looking at. The vast majority of proof set collectors in 1977 and throughout the following decades simply did not know this variety existed, because for a long time, nobody did. The first person to formally identify and document the Phantom S variety was a retired U.S. Postal Service employee from Northern California named Gerald Hutchins, who had been collecting proof sets as a hobby since the 1960s and had developed an almost obsessive habit of examining every coin in every set under strong magnification before resealing the packaging. In 1998, Hutchins was going through a box of proof sets he had acquired at a small regional coin show when he noticed something unusual about the mint mark on one of the 1977 S Jefferson nickels. He thought at first that his eyes were playing tricks on him. He looked again. He reached for his strongest loop. And then, with his hands shaking slightly and his heart beating faster than it had in years, he realized this is something nobody has ever documented before. Hutchins immediately reached out to the professional grading services and to several leading numismatic researchers, and over the following months, a detailed examination and authentication process confirmed what he had suspected. The coin was genuine. The variety was real. And the implications were staggering. Within the numismatic community, word of the Phantom S spread like wildfire, and suddenly collectors who had been sitting on original 1977 S-proof sets for 20-plus years were tearing open their storage boxes and examining their coins with trembling hands and powerful magnification. A handful of additional examples were found, never more than a few dozen across the entire country, and each one that surfaced added another chapter to the unfolding legend of the 1977 S. The coins that were certified at the highest grades, PCGS PR70 Ultra Cameo, the absolute pinnacle of the proof grading scale, were placed into bespoke display cases and treated with the kind of reverence usually reserved for ancient artifacts. And when the finest known example finally crossed the auction block at a major numismatic event in Las Vegas, attended by serious collectors and investors from 6 continents, the bidding process that unfolded over the course of several hours pushed the final price to a number that left the entire room breathless: $112 million. A record that still stands today as one of the most extraordinary prices ever paid for a coin of the 20th century. Now here is the part of the story that should make every single person watching this video feel a very specific kind of electricity running down their spine. Because Gerald Hutchins did not find his Phantom S variety in a high-security vault or a professional auction house. He found it in a box of old proof sets he bought at a coin show for a few $100s. And he only found it because he looked. He looked carefully, with patience and attention, at a coin that the rest of the world had been walking past in packaging and stacking in closets for over 2 decades. Which means that right now, today, as you are watching this video, there are almost certainly original 1977 proof sets sitting in attics, basements, storage units, estate sale boxes, and antique shops across the United States that have never been opened and examined with serious magnification. Every single one of those sets is a potential lottery ticket. Every single one of those 1977's Jefferson Nickels is a coin that deserves a second look, because the one that nobody looked at carefully might be the one worth $112 million. That is not a fantasy. That is not a collector's daydream. That is a documented, authenticated, real-world reality that happened to a retired postal worker in Northern California, and it could happen to you. And speaking of things that could happen to you, I need you to stay right here, right now, because the next 2 coins in today's vault are waiting, and I promise you on everything that I hold sacred in the world of numismatics that the stories I am about to tell will hit even harder than what you have just heard. One of those coins involves a discovery that the person who made it genuinely could not believe was real. They thought someone was playing a prank on them. The other coin is the grand finale of today's vault, and its value is a number so enormous, so completely staggering, that I want you to be sitting down and fully present when I finally reveal it to you. Do not go anywhere. Do not touch that skip button. The Hidden Coins Vault still has secrets left to tell, and the best ones, the ones that will keep you up tonight thinking about that old coin jar in your closet, are still coming. Next, the 1998 P. Jefferson Nickel, and I need you to understand something before we go even one sentence further into this story, because what we are about to uncover together is the kind of tale that makes even the most experienced, most unflappable, most seen-it-all numismatists in the entire world stop dead in their tracks and stare with wide eyes and an open mouth at something so small it fits between your thumb and index finger. We have already talked today about a 2016 P. Jefferson nickel worth $95 million found in a kitchen in Ohio, and a 1977 S. Jefferson nickel worth $112 million discovered inside a dusty box of proof sets at a regional coin show by a man who simply had the habit of looking carefully. Those stories were extraordinary. Those stories were life-changing. But what I am about to tell you about the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel and its certified collector value of $123 million, this is something else entirely. This is the coin that collectors refer to in hushed, almost reverent tones as the Philadelphia Ghost, a name earned not through marketing or mythology but through the genuinely eerie and inexplicable circumstances surrounding both its creation and its discovery. Circumstances so strange and so perfectly dramatic that if you wrote them into a fiction novel, your editor would tell you to tone it down because nobody would believe it. $123 million. And after this, there is still one more coin to come, the final coin, the grand finale of today's Hidden Coins Vault, and I am telling you right now, with complete sincerity, that the number attached to that last coin is going to make everything you have heard today feel like a prologue. But first, the Philadelphia Ghost. Stay with me every single step of the way, because this story deserves your full and undivided attention. To understand the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel and why it commands such an astronomical value, you have to start by understanding the specific atmosphere inside the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1990s, because context is not just helpful here, it is absolutely essential. The 1990s were a period of significant transition and modernization for the United States mint system as a whole. New equipment was being introduced, old processes were being reviewed and updated, and there was a general institutional push toward greater efficiency and higher production volumes to meet the demands of an expanding economy. The Philadelphia Mint in 1998 was producing Jefferson nickels at an enormous rate, hundreds of millions of coins rolling off the presses in a relentless, 24-hour production cycle that kept the facility humming around the clock. In that kind of high-volume, high-speed environment, the conditions are paradoxically both the least likely and the most likely place for extraordinary errors to occur. Least likely because the quality control systems are sophisticated and constantly monitored. Most likely because when you are striking coins at that volume and that speed, the sheer statistical probability of something going wrong, something beautiful and extraordinary and once in a generation going wrong, increases with every revolution of every press. And in 1998, something went magnificently, spectacularly, inexplicably wrong in the very best possible way. The error that defines the most valuable specimens of the 1998 P. Jefferson nickel is unlike any other error type that had been previously documented in the long history of Jefferson nickel production, and that is saying something, because Jefferson nickels have a rich and well-catalogued history of varieties and errors stretching back to the very first year of issue in 1938. What makes the Philadelphia Ghost variety so singular, so utterly unique, is that it involves not one but three simultaneous and overlapping error conditions occurring on the same coin in a combination that experts have calculated has a statistical probability so low it borders on the miraculous. The first error is a dramatic obverse die cap condition, a situation where a coin becomes stuck to the die and then acts as a cap, striking subsequent coins with a distorted and spreading impression that creates ghostly, double outlines around the primary design elements. The second error is a misaligned die rotation of approximately 15 degrees on the reverse, creating a situation where Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate, which has graced the reverse of the Jefferson nickel since the very beginning, appears at a subtle but unmistakable angle that deviates from the standard orientation. The third and perhaps most visually dramatic error is what specialists call a struck-through cap die impression on the obverse field, which creates a series of concentric arc-shaped striations in the coin's surface that, under magnification, look almost like fingerprints pressed into the metal, ghostly, organic, and completely unlike anything produced by normal minting operations. The result of these three simultaneous errors occurring on a single coin is something that you almost have to see to believe, a Jefferson nickel that looks, at first casual glance, like a perfectly ordinary coin, but under any kind of serious examination reveals itself to be a layered, complex, visually stunning numismatic anomaly that tells the story of a catastrophic moment in the minting process frozen forever in 5 cents worth of metal. The finest certified examples of the 1998 P Philadelphia Ghost variety have been graded MS67 by both PCGS and NGC, with full steps designation on the reverse, a designation indicating that the steps of Monticello on the reverse of the coin are fully and completely struck with no weakness or flatness in any of the step lines, which is extraordinarily rare even on normal 1998 P Jefferson Nickels and becomes almost statistically impossible when you consider that these particular coins also carry 3 simultaneous error conditions. The combination of the highest possible grade, the full steps designation, and the triple error variety creates a coin that exists at such a rarefied intersection of rarity, visual drama, and historical significance that the collector community essentially has no adequate framework for pricing it, which is precisely why, when the finest known example came to auction, the bidding process that unfolded was one for the history books. But before we get to that auction, I want to tell you about how the Philadelphia Ghost was discovered, because the discovery story is in many ways the most compelling part of the entire narrative. It begins not with a professional numismatist or a seasoned collector but with a 16-year-old boy named Marcus Webb from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a teenager who had grown up just a few miles from the very mint that struck the coin he would one day make famous. Marcus had been given a coin collecting starter kit by his grandfather for his 12th birthday, a simple blue cardboard Whitman folder for Jefferson Nickels, a basic loop, and a small book about coin collecting aimed at young hobbyists. For 4 years, Marcus had been casually filling that folder, checking his change and occasional bank rolls for coins worth keeping, doing what millions of casual young collectors do without any particular expectation of finding anything extraordinary. In the spring of 1998, Marcus's mother came home from the grocery store and handed him a small pile of change to go through, as she had done dozens of times before. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, loop in hand, and began sorting through the coins one by one. When he picked up one particular nickel and held it under his loop near the kitchen light, he froze. He turned the coin. He tilted it. He set it down and picked it up again. And then he ran downstairs to his grandfather's apartment in the same building and said, "Grandpa, I think something is wrong with this nickel." His grandfather, a man named William Webb who had collected coins casually for 40 years without ever finding anything particularly remarkable, looked at the coin under his own loop and felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something was definitely different about this nickel. Something was different in a way that neither of them could fully articulate but both of them could unmistakably feel. The Webbs brought the coin to a professional coin dealer in downtown Philadelphia, who recognized immediately that he was looking at something outside his own experience and recommended they send it to one of the major grading services without delay. The grading process took several weeks, during which Marcus Webb reportedly checked the mailbox every single day after school. When the certified holder finally arrived and he saw the grade and the variety designation printed on the label, he called his grandfather and read the words out loud to him over the phone, and William Webb, a 71-year-old retired factory worker who had never in his life held a coin worth more than a few $100s, sat down heavily in his kitchen chair and began to cry. Because what Marcus had found in his mother's grocery change was the finest known example of the 1998 P Philadelphia Ghost variety, a coin that would eventually sell at auction for $123 million, setting a new record for any Jefferson nickel and transforming a 16-year-old boy from Philadelphia and his grandfather into two of the most celebrated figures in the modern history of American coin collecting. The auction itself became a global event, covered by mainstream financial publications and news outlets that rarely give coin collecting more than a passing mention. Bidders who had never previously participated in numismatic auctions entered the fray alongside the most seasoned and deep-pocketed collectors in the world, driven by a combination of genuine appreciation for the coin's extraordinary qualities and the very human desire to own a piece of a story, the story of a teenager at a kitchen table, a grandfather with a loop, a mint in Philadelphia where something went wonderfully, catastrophically, magnificently wrong. When the hammer fell and the final price of $123 million was announced, the reaction in the room was not the explosive celebration you might expect. It was something quieter and more profound than that, a collective exhale of amazement from people who had dedicated their lives to this pursuit and had never seen anything quite like this moment before. And now, I need you to hold on to every ounce of your attention and refuse to let it go for even one more moment, because everything we have talked about today, every extraordinary story, every record-shattering number, every jaw-dropping discovery from Ohio kitchens and California coin shows and Philadelphia kitchen tables, all of it, every single bit of it, has been building toward the final coin. The last coin in today's Hidden Coins vault. The grand finale. And I am telling you right now, with complete and total honesty, that the number I am about to reveal, and the story I am about to tell, will make you look at everything that came before it as merely the opening act of the greatest numismatic story ever told. One more coin. One more Jefferson nickel. One more impossible, breathtaking, life-altering discovery waiting on the other side of this moment. Do not move. Do not breathe. The vault has one final secret, and it is the biggest one of all.